Recording. Okay, here we go. Hashem is Daf Kuf Yud Beis, and the last Daf from Masechet Kesubos. And I wanted to just to point out a few things on a regular Kesuba. You should know that when you sign a regular Kesuba, you always say that, just to know a few words of what they're saying. You say the Chosin is saying Va'ano aflech afalech v'oiker ve'ezin v'farnes. Basically, he's saying that I'm going to do any type of job to support you. Afalech means I'm going to plow a field if I need to. V'oiker, and I'm going to give respect and mechabed his wife more than himself. And the Ezen, the Farnes, he says he's going to give Mezainis and Parnasa. That's what the obligation is for a husband to his wife. And just point out that if it's kedai to go through the Ksuba to see how much of it you understand, and remember from Masechet Kesubos. But basically, hi, we're just starting, Louis. We didn't start yet. But in a Kesuba, you have the 200 zuz, and then there's Nedunya, which the husband commits himself. Originally, he committed himself 100 kesef tsuri, right? 100 kesef tsuri, and then and then afterwards is 100 kesef tsuri, and then he commits himself another 100 kesef just for the Nedunya. For any dowry she brought in, you're guaranteeing her basically 300, 200 plus another 100 plus another 100 is 400. So just look that over when you get a chance in the Kesuba. Okay, let's begin. Let us begin. Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Omid Beis by the wide lines. Omer Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, we'll make it bigger, and we're talking about Tchias HaMesim. Omer Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, a very frightening thing. Ame ha'aratzois einim chayim. Ame ha'aratzois. Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Omid Beis. Ame ha'aratzois einim chayim. That somebody who's an Amoritz is not going to get up Tchias HaMesim. He's not going to get up Tchias HaMesim. Shnema. An Amoritz is somebody who's a Jewish guy, but he doesn't pay attention to his Jewishness. He doesn't spend time learning Torah. So the Rabbi Elazar said that Amoritz will not get up Tchias HaMesim. Pinema Mesim Bal Yechyu. Those that are dead when they're alive are never going to get up to be alive. And Amoritz is somebody who's dead while he's alive because he's living without paying attention what the purpose of life is. Tanya Nami Nachi, there's another brisa that says Mesim Bal Yechyu. Dead people that won't come to Tchias HaMesim. Yochel HaKol, Talmud Loimer, Refoim Bal Yakumo. Those who are weak. Refoim means somebody who's weak is not going to get up. A guy who weakens himself when it comes to learning Torah. For everything else, he has energy for. Anybody he has energy for any type of activity, but when it comes to going to learn, then he doesn't have energy for that. So then, Shrek L'Chazach, Rabbi Elazar said that he's not going to get up to Tchias HaMesim. Rabbi Yochanan said, I don't appreciate that you say such a thing. It's too severe to say. He says that it means that who's not getting up to Tchias HaMesim. Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. He holds it's somebody who weakens himself by doing avodah zarah. Nowadays, if a person leisurely takes drugs or whatever, any type of avodah zarah, so that is a person not getting up Tchias HaMesim. Somebody who's not going to learn, he will get up Tchias HaMesim. Amalei. So Rabbi Elazar said to him, Mikra acha ani darish. I have another pasuk that says that a person who doesn't learn Torah will not get up Tchias HaMesim. The Ksiv, it says in the pasuk, Ital oris talecha, the light of the tal oris talecha, the light of dew will be your dew. Dew is something a hint for how we get up Tchias HaMesim. Ve'eretz refoim tapil, those that are weak will fall to the land. Kol hamishhtamish ba'ara Torah, someone who uses the light of Torah or HaTorah Mechayehu. The light of Torah will help him get up. Tchias Amesim. V'chol she'ein mishtamish bara Torah. Anybody who does not work and use the light of Torah, ain or Torah Mechayehu. The light of Torah does not let him come alive. So basically, Reb Lazar stood by his opinion that a person who is not learning Torah, he's Jewish, but he's not learning Torah, he's an Amoritz, he's not getting up Tchias Amesim. And this disturbed Rabbi Yochanan. Kevin the Chazir commit star. So since Reb Lazar saw that what Reb Lazar said, that what his opinion disturbs Rabbi Yochanan, Amalei, so Reb Lazar said, Rabbi Yochanan, Matzasilem Takanim in Torah. I found a way that somebody who's an Amoritz could get up Tchias Amesim. Pasuk says, V'atem adveikim b'Hashem chayim kulchem hayom. So the Gemara asks a question: if you're cleaving to Hashem, you'll get up, you'll be alive. Is it possible to cleave to Hashem? It's Pasuk says, Ki Hashem elikecha eish archla. The Eibishter is like a fire that consumes you. I mean, you can't cling to the Eibishter no matter how religious you think you are. Ella. So what's the pshat? How is the best way to cling to Eibishter? Called Hamasi bitoy Talmud Chacham, who makes sure that his daughter marries a Talmud Chacham. He takes a Talmud Chacham as a son-in-law. He invests Talmid Chachamim their money to get them a better return, or takes them in partnership in business so that they have time to sit and learn. And somebody who benefits Talmid Chachamim from his possessions. Okay, so let's say he has an apartment in Florida, he lets the Talmud Chacham stay there. So mala all of that's almost as if you're connected to the Shechina. And therefore, if you're connected to the Shechina, if you're connected to the Shechina, you'll be alive. So even if you're not learning Torah per se, but you're giving help to a Talmud Chacham to be able to learn Torah, you're going to rise Tchias Amesim. It's a very similar idea in the pasuk. The pasuk says you have to love the Eibishter, and you have to cling to the Eibishter. Is it possible for a person to connect to the Shechina? Ella comes to teach you, whoever who marries his daughter off to a Talmud Chacham, who does business for a Talmud Chacham, and he lets Talmid Chacham benefit from his possession. Same idea. Torah considers it if you're connected to the Shechina. Nugamara. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Yosef. Rabbi Chia bar Yosef said, how is Tchias Amesim going to look? Asidim tzadikim shematzbetzim ba'oil b'Yerushalayim. Any tzaddik is, obviously, we saw yesterday that a tzaddik is going to go in a tunnel and make his way to Yerushalayim and then pop out somewhere in Yerushalayim, maybe out of a manhole cover. I don't know. It's going to pop out in Yerushalayim. You're going to pop into the city like a grass on the ground. Ve'in ir el Yerushalayim. And the city there, it's referring to Yerushalayim. I'll protect this city. So the Yetzitzu is referring to that you're going to sprout out in Tchias Amesim by like a grass. This is very real. You have to really believe this, that the Tchias Amesim, this is a reaffirmation that what we see here is only temporary, and that everybody that we know, Mitzvah Shem, will rise up again in Tchias Amesim. The Rabbi Chia bar Yosef said, "Asidim tzadikim sheyalmu b'malbusheim." I'm not sure what this means, but tzadikim were going to get up wearing the same clothing. What does that mean? I don't know, but they're going to wear the same clothing. Kal v'chomer mechita. This is you can make a kal v'chomer from a chita, from a piece of wheat. Machita. If you plant a piece of wheat, shnikra aruma, you plant the wheat without the husks and the shell and everything like that. They're planting the seed. Yoitze b'kam lebushim. When it grows, you get a new piece of wheat with a lot of coverings, a husk, a shell, etc. Tzadikim, tzadikim that are buried with their clothing, alachas v'kama v'kama, certainly they're going to get up with their clothing. Rabbi Chia said, now we're talking about how is it going to look, how is Eretz Yisrael going to look in the future world when, how is Olam Haba going to look in Eretz Yisrael? After Tchias Amesim, So Asida Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, Shatoitze Gluska'ayis Klemilas. Eretz Yisrael is going to sprout forth, bring out cakes and fine clothing. Shneamar, the pasuk says, "Ye pisas bar ba'aretz." There's going to be pisas. Pisas is a hint for large breads and also for fine clothing. Bar is, of course, food, which refers to cakes. Ba'aretz in the land. Basically, it's trying to say that in the future there's going to be very easy parnasa for everyone, so that you can be busy with other things. Tanar Rabbanan, he pisas bar ba'aretz b'reish harim. Amru, Chazal tell us, in the future, you're going to see a piece of wheat grow as tall as a palm tree. It's going to go on the tops of mountains. So it's going to be so tall and it'll look like it's a top of a mountain. So how are you going to harvest it? It's going to be difficult to harvest. Talmud Loima, Yirish Kalvonoin period. Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to storm like Lebanon its fruits. What does that mean? You're going to have this very tall piece of wheat. When you come to Israel, and there's going to be very tall piece of wheat like a palm tree. HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe ruach mebeis genazav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring a wind from his storehouse, and blow on it, salta, and that's going to cause it to rain flour. A person will go to the field, maybe like pieces the other, will bring a handful of flour home. And it'll be easy. It'll be manu panasosai panasas anshabasing. And he'll be able to sustain his sustaining and his whole family. Im chelet kilyas chita. Amru, Chazal tell us, asida chita shetei kishtei kloya shashar hagadol. You're going to see a piece of wheat look like the two kidneys of a large ox. They're going to be humongous inside. Tisma. Don't wonder that how's that possible. So you could look in Guinness World Records, maybe you'll find it. But how do you see that it ever happened in Israel? The Gemara says, Harei Shul, there was once a fox, Kinem Balefis. He made his nest for his pups in a turnip. Ushkalu, and when he left, Umatsu boy Shitu Litrim Belitra Shal Tzipara. They found it was weighed 60 liters. In not the light liters, but the liters of tzipori. It's a very heavy measurement and a large size. So there was just, it did occur already. It's not going to be like a brand new occurrence. This kind of weird growth has already happened in Israel. Tanya Omar Rabbi Yosef said, Maisa b'Shichem, there was a story in Shichem, and Shichem is the name of a place in Israel. Be'echad, there was one person, Shaniach loy aviv shloisha badei. His father left him over, you'd think he as a Yerusha, 3 stalks of mustard. So that's nothing. What are you going to do with 3 stalks of mustard? But what was interesting about it, the Nifshach Echman, one of them broke. The Nimtzaboy, and when they broke open that one stalk of mustard, there was in it Tisha Karben Chado. There was 9 calves of mustard. And so there was so much mustard seed in that stalk. The Eitz of Sichir Sukas Yaitzim, they were able to use the wood from that to roof a artisan's sukkah, so to speak, an artisan's hut. So it was very useful. It was a very useful. You think it's a small Yerusha in small inheritance. That one mustard stalk was very, very valuable. Amar Rab Shimon ben Tachlifa. Rab Shimon ben Tachlifa said, "Kelach shal kruv v'niach lanu abba." My dad left me over 1 stalk of kruv. I think that kruv is cabbage. And it was 1 stalk where we could use it as a ladder. So it was so abnormally big. Then the pasuk says, "V'dam einav tishteh chomer." Also talking about the future, with the blood of a grape, you'll be able to drink a chomer. What's a chomer? Amru lo yikolam hazeh kolam b'val. This world is not like in the future world. Ho'olam hazeh, in this world, yesh b'tzar. When you want wine, there's an amount of stress, amount of work that goes into it. Liftzer, you have to cut the grape, lidrech, and press. So there's a lot of, till you get wine, it's a big process. But in the future world, maybe another achas bekarin or besvini. You'll take one grape in a wagon and in a ship. Umanika bezavias beisa, and you put it in the corner of your house. Umasapik mimhemenu kapitas gadol. That will be like a large jug. You'll be able to benefit from it. The eitzav and just the wood from that grape. Masikin tachas tafshil, you'll be able to use underneath your pot to cook with. It's funny that this Gemara appears in Parshas Noach, and on the parsha that we're reading, Parshas Noach, it seems that the pre-Mabul world was that kind of a world where everything was humongous. You didn't have to work so hard, and that's why it corrupted the people. So it's interesting that the Gemara aligns itself with what we're reading this week, Sedra. There was not one grape that doesn't have can produce 3 saw of wine. Shnema, v'dam ein of tishta chomer. With the blood of a grape, you'll drink a chomer. I'll take a chomer el chomer. The word chomer is a 30 saw of wine. It's a measurement of a large amount of wine. That will come from one grape in the future world. He also Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel. Omar, he explained this pasuk. What's the pasuk that says? You're going to be able to tie to a vine your young horse. So he plays with the word Iroi, that he's saying that there will not be one grapevine in the whole of Israel, that you're going to hold. You need an entire city just to cut it down. That's how big each grapevine will be. What does it mean? So the sareka means to a branch. You'll tie your ox, but it means sareka means kol ilin sarak. It will not be any tree that's sarak. That means it's a non-fruit bearing tree. Shebarit Yisrael. In other words, the future will be that a tree that doesn't produce fruit will produce fruit that is the load of 2 donkeys. Maybe it's going to produce fruit like grapes. It seems that it's going to produce grapes, but maybe it's not going to be able to make wine out of those grapes. The pasuk continues, you'll be able to wash in wine your clothing. Maybe it's going to say it's going to be not red wine. It's blood. It's red as blood. Maybe you'll tell me it doesn't make you inebriated. In other words, you can't get drunk on such wine. It can make you off-centered. You can't taste it. It's not tastable. Every throat, I will taste that future wine. Give me more. You'll say this wine is it's good for young people. For old people, it's not good. For somebody who's white, it'll be better than milk. For somebody who's old, this wine will be good. So basically what the Gemara just got through saying is that in the future world, you're going to look at a tree that didn't produce any fruit, and it's going to give you a load of two donkeys full of grapes, and that you'll be able to make wine from that, not only wine, but the best quality wine that you're going to so desire, that's very, very desirable. That's good for young people and old people. But the Gemara it's a drasha from a pasuk. But the Gemara wants to know, what's the real simple way to learn the pasuk? Rav Dimi explained the simple way to learn the pasuk is Amar Knesset Yisrael Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Jewish nation, the Jewish one collective soul of the Jewish nation said before the Eibishter, Rebbeinu Shalom, the master of the world, Ra'ois be'einecha the basim mechamra. Make a sign with your eyes that you love us more than wine, that we are loved by you more than wine. Ba'achvi li shenayach, and show us your teeth. The basim mechalba, that's sweeter to us than having milk. In other words, what Knesset Yisrael is saying, even when we're in Gullus, God should show us some sort of favoritism, that he loves us and that he's smiling at us, that he's proud of what we're doing. Anyway, the Gemara says, you just got through saying that it's nice to smile. You want God to smile upon us. This is a proof to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Toiv, it's more beneficial, Hamal b'shnayim lechaveiroi, who smiles to his friends. He shows him the Liberace's. He whitens his teeth to his friend. More than somebody who gives him to drink milk. Shinama uven shnayim mecholov. Al tikul uven shnayim eliben shnayim. You show your whitening of your teeth is more than giving somebody milk. The point is that sometimes If you give somebody milk, he's finished. When he's finished, the drink is he doesn't need anymore. Sometimes you give somebody the white teeth. It means you give them a nice compliment. You show friendliness to them. That can last throughout the day. You make him feel good. That's more important than just feeding a person. The Gemara says, Rab Chia bar Ada makri dardeka de Rish Lakish hava. Rab Chia bar Ada was the tutor of the children of Rish Lakish. So Rab Chia was the tutor. So for 3 days he didn't come. Rab Chia didn't come to teach the children of Rish Lakish. He also, when he finally showed up after 3 days, Amalei my pagrita, why did you delay? Why were you missing? Amalei, so Rab Chia told Rish Lakish, the reason why I didn't come to tutor your children, my father left me one grapevine, and one branch of a grapevine. I cut from it 300 clusters from that one grapevine. Eshkol, each cluster, Lagarav, produced a saw of wine, of juice. Yom Sheni, but when the second day came around, I did the same thing. I cut another 300 from this branch. I cut another 300 clusters of grapes. But in order to make a saw of wine, a saw of juice, I needed shtei eshkolos l'garav. I needed 2 clusters to make a garav. Yom Shlishi, on the third day, from this branch, I took off another 300 clusters, shloish eshkolos l'garav. But in order to make one saw, I needed to take 3 clusters of grape to make this juice. And it was so much juice, so much wine and juice I got from this one branch. I started to, I made it hefker more than half of it. In other words, I didn't need it anymore. So the Gemara says, if Omalei, so Rav Lakish said to him, Ilav the pagret have avdet. If you wouldn't have been delayed and not come back to the learning, it would have produced more. The Gemara says, Rabbi Bar Yecheskel ikli b'nei Brak. Rabbi Bar Yecheskel got to b'nei Brak. Chazin lahani izi de ka'achli tusi te'eni v'konativ dushli miteni v'chal v'toyif minayu. U'ma'ara b'hadei hadodi. He came to b'nei Brak and he saw goats eating figs, and honey was running down from the figs, and milk was coming out of the goats, and they got mixed into each other. Omar, he said, Haini is always called a vash. That's what it means. Eretz Yisrael is mixed with the milk and honey, milk from the goats and honey from the figs that the goats is trying to eat. Amar Rabbi Yaakov as the story. If you go from Lud to the place Oine, it's 3 miles. One time I got up very early in the morning and I went up to my ankles with the honey that was coming from figs. So it was like a flood of honey. I saw what it means in Sipari, what it means when the Torah calls Eretz Yisrael the land of milk and honey. It was 16 miles by 60 miles, which is 256 square miles. I saw what it means of that the entire Israel is flowing with milk and honey. We go to Kuf Yud Beis Amar Aleph. It's the area from this place called Mibei Michsei to the fortress of Tulbanki, which means it's an area. Chofkeis Parse, Urkev Pusya, Shita Parse. And the length, it was 22 parse, and the width is 6 parse, which is 2,112 square miles, full of milk and honey all mixed together. Lugamara. Rab Chelbei Ravi, Rab Yosef B'chanin Iklehu Asra. All these people, Rab Chelbei, Ravi, and Rab Yosef, came to a city. Aisel Kamei, they brought before them a parsaka dahave ki ilpas kefir hine. They brought them a peach, and this peach was such a size of a pot from Kvar Hinai, a huge pot. The ilpas Kvar Hinai, this Hindu pot, let's call it, Kamahave, what could it hold? Hey, soin. So they had this massive looking peach that these 3 people ate. They only ate of a third of that peach. V'fkiru shlish, they gave away a third. And they gave it to the animals, a third of their animal. So Lashana Ikli Rab Lazar Lahasam. Rab Lazar came to the same place next year. And they brought him before him a peach, but he was able to hold on to it in his hand. It was a smaller peach. And he said, the fruits of the land become salted. It means it doesn't produce so much because of the evil deeds of those that live there. And what he's trying to say is that last year's peach, what you gave the other Amoraim, was humango, and I'm getting this peach that I could hold in my hand. It must be you're doing something wrong, and the peaches themselves are growing smaller. The Gemara says, Rabbi Shua Belevi Iklil Gavla. He came to this place called Gavla. He saw that there was like grapevines, and the grapes looked as the size of, it looked to him, looked like small calves. Small cows are amongst the, he mistakenly thought the grapes are small calves. Amar, he said, there must be calves by the grapevines. So Amar Lay, they told him, no, ketufin, they're grapes. That's why it looks to you like they're as big as grapes, but they're calves, but they're really grapes. Amar, so Rabbi Shua ben Levi said, Eretz hachnisi perisaya. Don't produce so much fruit. We're on Kufya Beis on the first wide line. Eretz hachnisi perisaya. Don't produce so much fruits. Lemi ata maitzia perisaya. Who are you producing all these fruits? Lagoyim halol shamdo leinu b'chatasenu. For these goyim that took over Eretz Yisrael, don't be such a productive land. L'shana ikla Rab Chia lahasam. The next year, Rab Chia came to the same place. Hazinin davakaimek ize. He saw that the grapes were the size of goats, a little smaller, but they were still big. Amar, he said, ize be'nekafanim. There must be goats amongst the grapes. Abolei, they told him, Zil, go away from here, Rab Chia. Don't do like your friend there, Rabbi Shua Levi. He cursed us, and now the fruits production is much smaller. So we don't want you to curse us. So just go from here. And yes, the grapes were the size of, that looked like the size of goats. Tanu Rabbanan, b'birchaseha shel Eretz Yisrael. B'birchaseha shel Eretz Yisrael. When Eretz Yisrael has an abundant blessing, Beis Saw, Isa Chamishas Rubin Kurim. You have a Beis Saw, which is an area that can that you could plant. A saw produces 50,000 kurs. Okay, 50,000 kurs. Each core is 30 saw, so 50,000 times 30. Why? The Gemara makes a cheshbon. Tzoyan in a place outside Israel, a Goyish place, one normal Beis Saw makes 70 kurim. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, Amrav Meir, Aniri Isi Beit Shan, Beis Saw Oisha Shiva Karim. I saw Beit Shan, which is another name for Tzoyan, that it's an old, Rabbi Meir used to travel a lot. So he traveled outside Israel and he found this place, Beit Shan, that you plant in an area, Beit Sha'ah, and it makes 70 kurs. There's nothing better from all the lands in the land of Mitzrayim. That means Mitzrayim is the best possible, most fertile place on planet Earth. Shenamar Kagan Hashem Keretz Mitzrayim. It's the garden of God, the land of Mitzrayim. So it's the most fertile place on planet Earth. The most fertile place in land of Egypt is Tzoyan. The Havamarba Malachim, kings used to settle there. So this Tzoyan or Beit Shan is a most fertile place in the most fertile country. There's no worse place to live than in Hebron. That's where we bury people. It's the most unfertile place in Israel. Hebron can produce 7 times more than Tzoyan Mitzrayim, because the pasuk says, so what does it mean? Hebron was built before Tzoyan Mitzrayim. Hebron came before Mitzrayim. So Mitzrayim must have been around in civilization before Hebron. So what does the pasuk mean? The Hebron is 7 years ahead of Tzayim Mitzrayim. So this 7 years doesn't mean 7 years. It means 7 times more. Whatever Tzayim Mitzrayim produces, Chevron produces more. It produces 7 times more than Tzayim. So if Tzayim produces 70 kur, so then Chevron will produce 70 times 7 is 490. In a further place in Israel, it would produce 500 kur. And the hani mili shloi b'berchasel. When it's not a blessing time in Israel, avo b'berchasel, when there's a blessing time in Israel, you do ksiv v'yizra yitza ba'arotzahu, then it produces 100 times more. You see in the Chumash when there was God gave a special blessing, a normal place produced 100 times what it normally produced. So 500 times 100 is 50,000, and that's how they came to the cheshbon. Tanya, we learned in the Braisa. A saw in the Yehuda, in the area of the south of Israel, made 5 saw. Saw Kamach, saw Silas, saw Subim. Some it made a saw bran, coarse bran, and another saw Kubaraya, barium. So that means even in Yehuda, they're producing unbelievable amounts of quality and quantity. This Christian said to Rab Chanina, you're right to praise the Eretz Yisrael, because base achas saw achas nichli abba. My father left me one base saw of whatever I guess of produce. Mashach, once I used for some I used for oil. Chamar, some I used for wine. Many iber, some I used for produce. Many kitnias, some of it I use for legumes. Many royas miknasi, and some of it I shepherd my cattle. In other words, he got this field of Beisa'ah, and he was able to do so much with this: produce oil, produce wine, produce other produce, legumes, beans, and he had enough even to graze his animals. So the ground that was so productive. Okay, Amalei. Now the Gemara goes and tells you a little story of when the Jews first came into Eretz Yisrael in the time of Yeshua. Amalei Ahu Bar Amrari Lebar Eretz Yisrael. There was an Amorite who said to a Jew who just started taking over Israel at the time of Yeshua, "Hi dekama adgudi hi also the kaima aguda diardana, this fig tree that I have that's next to the Jordan. Kama gadresa minei. How much do you produce? How much do you cut from it? In other words, this used to be his land. He was driven from the land like the Arabs, and he came back to see the Jew working the land, and he asked him, this tree, how much do you produce from it? Amalei, so the Jew answers, Shitin Karan, I produce 60 kur. Amalei, so the Amorite said to him, Akati lo yelaisi ba. You're not even here a short period of time, Jews, and achrivis suha. You're already destroying Israel. Because when I had it, I know I was cutting already 120 kur from this tree, and you're only getting 60 kur from the tree. Amalei, so the Jew answered, Anonami. I meant to say, I was telling you from one side I'm getting 60, but if you count the other side, I'm getting another 60, so it's producing the same. The Gemara again talks about Eretz Yisrael. Amar Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said, "My dichsid." Why does it say in the pasuk, "Ve'etin loch Eretz Chemda"? I'm giving you a desirable land, Nachlas Tzvi, the inheritance of that you want. But Tzvi could also mean deer. Lama Eretz Yisrael nimshul Tzvi. Why is Israel compared to a deer? Laimalachah to teach you, Ma Tzvi, just like a deer. This deer, ein oyer machzik b'soreg. The skin. When you slaughter the deer, the skin, you can't put it back on the animal. It shrinks very fast. If every part of Israel was producing produce and fruit and vegetables, there would be not enough room to hold all the fruits that it produces. Another interpretation of why Israel is compared to a deer. Just like a deer is lighter than all the wild animals. So also Israel is lighter than all the other lands to ripen its fruit. It goes quickly. And hence you see it in our time. We call it startup nation. In such a quick period of time, since 1948, we went to one of the most advanced nations of the world in a very short period of time. The Eretz Yisrael moves quickly, and even the people themselves grasp things quickly, and that's a uniqueness that you have in Israel. And the Gemara says, but because you do things quickly, do you suffer in quality? A deer is a quick animal, but it doesn't have fatty meat. After Eretz Yisrael, would you say Eretz Yisrael is quick to ripen, but the fruits are inferior quality? They're fatter than milk, and their fruits are more sweeter than honey. The Gemara says, Rabbi Lazar Kiabasolik Eretz Yisrael, when he would go up to Eretz Yisrael, Amalei, he said like this, Poltili Michad. I finally made it. One curse is behind me. Kisamhu, when he got the ordination, when they gave him smicha, Amar Poltili Mitarte, I don't have two curses. When they put him onto the Bezdin that decides the calendar, Amalei Poltili Mitlas, I was saved from three curses. Why? Shnema, the pasuk says, so when the Navi discusses the curses that happen to a person, it says that you're not going to go to Israel, you're not going to get smicha, and you're not going to know the calendar. And Reb Lazar got to Eretz Yisrael, and he got smicha, and he was invited onto the Bezdin that decides the calendar. So he said, I was saved from all three curses. Rab Zera, we saw before, loved Eretz Yisrael, but his Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda, told him don't go. But he went anyway. And when he got to Eretz Yisrael, he didn't find the ferry to cross the Jordan, perhaps. He took like a rope and he tied it to the other side or whatever, and he was like a monkey crossing a river with one branch over the water. So he could have waited, a few minutes till the ferry comes back. This Tzeduki said, I'm a Peziza, you impetuous nation. You have no patience. Your mouth always talks faster than you can hear because you said Nasa v'nishma. So you're still very impetuous with no patience. Jews have no patience. You could have waited till the ferry comes. Why are you risking yourself crossing the river this way? Amalei. So Rab Zera said a fascinating thing. The place that Moshe Naharam did not merit to come, who says I'm going to merit to come? So I have to take advantage of this opportunity and be impatient and exactly risk myself to cross the river and not wait for the ferry. We have a discuss to go to Eretz Yisrael. Rab Abba Menashe Kefa de Akoi. Rab Abba would kiss the stones of Akoi when he got there. Rab Chanina, when he lived in Israel, Masakim Maskele, he would fix the stumbling blocks in the road. And he did it because he didn't want anybody to speak bad of Israel. So he's almost like picking up the garbage, straightening out the roads. Rab Ami, Rab Asi, we go to the Amud Beis, Kufya Beis, Amud Beis. Kaimu Mishim Shalatula, they would go from the sun to the shade. When it was hot outside, they would go into the shade. And Mitula L'Shimshim, when it was cold outside, they would go from shade to the sun. In other words, they always made sure that when they're talking outside, they're in the most comfortable position so that they wouldn't have to think about that Eretz Yisrael is too hot. Oh, Eretz Yisrael is too cold. They always wanted to say the nice things about Eretz Yisrael. Rab Chia Bar Gamda, fascinating thing. Migander ba'afora. When he got to Israel, he migander ba'afora. He would roll in the dirt in Israel. Shenama, he took it literally. Ki rotza avadecha savanau v'safara yechainenu. And your servants desired stone and its dirt. Yechainenu, I guess they found favor in. And so he actually took himself and rolled in the dirt. When a person passes, there's something about the dirt in Israel that there's a minute to bury somebody, they put in his hand some dirt of Israel, so that he'll have something about Israel when he cuts up Tchias HaMesim. Amar Rab Zera, Amar Rab Yirmei Ba'aba. So by the way, Dar Sheben David Ba, the generation that Ben Mashiach will come. There's going to be antagonistics against Talmid Chachamim. A cleansing, a refinement after refinement. There will be remaining a tenth. And there'll be constant of refinement even to the remaining part of the people who are left over, right? Tanur Rav Yosef, a despoiling of a despoiling of despoiling. They're just going to weed away to make the purest Jews remain during the time of Mashiach. Amar Rav Chia Barashi Amar Rav. We're talking about Eretz Yisrael. We're talking about the future. And the reason why we end off Masechta Kesubos this way is because we, so to speak, are married to the Eibishter. And the Eibishter has a Kesuba that he gave us. And every Kesuba has a lien on karka, on land. And our lien on land is on Israel. And that's how this relates to Masechta Kesubos. Amar Rav Chia Barashi Amar Rav, Asidin kol ilonei srak sheberetz Yisrael. Every tree that does not produce fruit in Eretz Yisrael, sheet anu peiros, that will be loaded up with fruit in the future. They'll be carrying fruit. As it says in the pasuk, Oz Yorananu kol atzei yar, all the trees of the forest will sing. Shenama, the pasuk says, Ki eitz nosa peria, the tree carries its fruit. Te'ein v'geifrem nos nuchelim, the fig tree and the vine gave its strength. But the pasuk says, Ki eitz, a tree will be carrying its fruit. This tree is a tree that normally did not carry fruit. And this, in the future, will carry fruit as well. We should all be zeichet to see it. Okay, so don't forget to say the Hadran when we finish. Be'ezus Hashem, and if anybody wants to say the Kaddish, appreciate it. If you can say it in the shul, the Kaddish, and tomorrow, Be'ezus Hashem, we will begin Masechta Nedarim.
Shkaya, thank you for everything.
I'll do the Siyum tomorrow.
Yes, Mazel Tov.